All right, testing, check 1, 2. I could be up a little bit louder probably. There we go. Sweet. It looks like everything is working. Everything looks good. Everything sounds good. Hello and welcome to yet another Friday song feedback stream. My name is Zaak Kerstetter. This is my channel, Catalyze Academy. And for those of you who are familiar with what we do here on Friday afternoons, you already know what's going on. But for anybody who is joining us either live right now or watching the video, as it gets uploaded later on, generally I do 2 streams per week. I do a Tuesday afternoon stream where I just kind of like hang out, talk about music production stuff, or whatever people are interested in talking about. It's kind of like an office hours for Ableton kind of thing. And then on Fridays, I do this, which is the song feedback stream, where people can basically send me tracks that they're working on, and I will listen to them live on stream. And we'll give you feedback on what I think you could potentially do to improve your tracks. As well as anybody else in chat is more than welcome and highly encouraged to also participate in that and let you know what your thoughts are. So in order to get set up here, I'm going to first copy the spreadsheet and paste it into the chat. And I'm going to pin it up to the top of the chat. So that way, if you would like to send me a track, you just copy the link in there to wherever I can stream it, a private SoundCloud link or wherever I can have access to it. Put your name in there. You can put in notes if you want to. Let me know a little bit about your track. And I basically will go top to bottom and kind of listen to them one at a time and kind of first come, first serve. On top of that, I do have a couple kind of like guidelines for submitting tracks that hopefully are useful. Number one, ideally original tracks, so no remixes or anything like that. For 2 reasons. Number one, I don't want to get any copyright strikes or any weird stuff like that. And number two, when giving feedback on remixes, if I don't know the original track, it's really hard for me to tell what is what's the like original piece of content, and what is just coming from the remix, which affects how I can give feedback to that track. Ideally, I would prefer works in progress. So I don't mind finished tracks, but if the track's already done and released and out into the world, you're not going to go back in and change that track. It's already out there. It's already uploaded to all different places. So I prefer works in progress, even if they're like very early on in, they're still in their like first baby phases. That's totally fine. I think that any point within the process of making a song is a good time to get feedback on it. Other than that, if you are uploading a track for feedback, I kind of expect, or at least hope, you will also give feedback to other people, just as a general kind of like, everybody in the community gets to kind of participate and help each other out. And it's not just me, one-way street talking to you. It's a group thing, and everybody kind of works on these together. If you are going to participate in giving people feedback, generally, I don't think it's good or I liked it counts as feedback, specifically because it doesn't help the person get better. So you could say it was good, and then I specifically like this one thing. I liked how you use saxophone 3/4 of the way through the song. Like if you're really specific about what you liked and specific about the things that were working in the track, that's really useful information. Whereas just it was good is not really helpful information. Ideally, only send me 1 song at a time. Oftentimes, I will have time at the end of these streams. If people, if we have extra time, people can send me more than 1 track if they want to get feedback on more than 1 track. And lastly, if you want to have kind of early access, you want to put your song in line get it, guarantee your song gets listened to, you can join the Discord channel, which should be linked below, and that will give you access to the spreadsheet before, way before the stream happens. So anytime in the week, you can just put a link in there, and I will get to it again, first come, first serve basis. So join the Discord if you want early access to it. Yeah, oh yeah, and even if you can't make it to the actual live stream itself, you can always post the song. I'll listen to it during the live stream, and all the live streams get posted to the channel after they're done, so you can always watch it at some later time. What's up, Kevin? How are you doing today? And as I'm checking the spreadsheet right now, it looks like nobody uploaded their track early, which means anybody who wants to get their track in now and not have to wait to hear other people's tracks first, you can again follow that link up at the top of the chat. It's pinned at the top, and just put the link in there. And I will get to that very, very soon because there's nobody else in there. I'm doing pretty good, Kevin. I've had a pretty busy week of teaching and working on music, and I got another DJ gig coming up this weekend. So I got staying busy. Not finishing songs though, which is the next big thing I need to focus on in my life is finishing and releasing some more tracks. But there's never enough time, you know? Cool. Well, I'm going to be hanging out here for a while until somebody sends me some tracks. So if you guys have any questions or comments or things that you would like to talk about, feel free to let me know and just toss it in the chat. And we got some people out there, but I want to hear those songs. Feed me your songs. How about you, Kevin? You got a track for me today? I know you had a new one last week. So is it too much to hope that you'll have another new one for this week? You usually have something lying around. Also, while you are here, I am also looking out for ideas for tips and tricks videos. So if you have any ideas, let me know because I'm always looking for those ideas. What's up? What's up, Willie? So up at the top of the chat, there is a spreadsheet that is pinned. You should be able to see that. And you can just toss a link in there and I will get listen to it right away, basically. And if you don't see the pinned spreadsheet, really let me know and I will figure out what's going on, but it should be there. Awesome. Hope everybody's having a good evening today. Can't believe how fast time goes by right now. Like each week just feels like it flies by. But I'm ready to hear some tracks. Yeah, video on tension and release would be really good. There's a lot of different like techniques for that. So that might be like a video series maybe, or like one really long video because there's so many different ways to kind of like think about tension in terms of like dynamics and pitch and arrangement and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, you can definitely submit SoundCloud links. In fact, that's usually the preferred way to do it for the most part. All right, so we got some tracks in there. We got the first one in. So Ryan, it looks like you linked me a Google Drive link that needs access. So right now it says access denied. So you might need to change the sharing settings on it. So, so when I click on it, I can actually get into it. What's up, Janef? Welcome back. Good to have you back. Willie, for right now, just one, and then as we kind of go through, if I have extra time at the end, usually I do this for about 2 hours, and usually I have time, then you can send me another one. But I want to make sure that everybody who's here gets a chance to send me at least one track. So I'm going to try this one more time. Okay, cool. Ryan, yours is working now, so I'm going to pull this up. And we will take a listen to it. And feel free to let me know if you have any comments or things that you want me to focus on in this track. And let me quick do a sound check, make sure this is all working and nothing crazy happens. It would help if my headphones were plugged into the right place. Let's try that again. Cool, you guys can hear that? It looks like you can, hopefully you can. Jadon, there's a link it's pinned up at the top of the chat. You just follow the link. Nice, that's a super cool track. I think there's a lot of things that I think are working really well for it. I think your bass line has this like very nice groovy feel, and then it's kind of like it's jumping all over the place in a way that's like it has a lot of movement to it. I think a lot of bass lines I hear these days tend to be like really simple, and I think your bass line is like doing the right amount of things, and it's working really well. Also, anybody who's in chat, feel free to give your own thoughts, comments, feedbacks, questions, ideas to Ryan here. So bass line's working really well as your main kind of like synthy part is also working really well. I do feel like you have this kind of like weird groany vocal sample. That thing right there, I think is cool, but I'm not sure if it fits the vibe of the rest of the track. It's like, it's a little bit kind of like unsettling, and the rest of the track is very settling. The rest of the track like really fits together. And that's the one layer to me in the whole song that I felt like could maybe either be switched up or turned down or kind of like de-emphasized a little bit in the track. You mentioned in the chat, you think it might be a little busy. I didn't think it was busy except for that one sound. And I think maybe if you tone that sound down, it would do you a lot of good and maybe feel a little bit less busy. Also, during your intro, your clap here, for some reason, stuck out to me a little bit. It sounded a little bit generic. And I feel like it's most of the way there, but maybe just layer it up with another clap that has like a slightly different kind of tonal quality to it. And I think that'll help with the intro quite a bit. Later on in the song, I didn't notice it being like that anymore. Like here, the snare clap sounds pretty fine. It was only during the intro where I was like, it just sounds a little weak again compared to everything else that's going on in this. Other than that, I like a lot of the percussive stuff you have going on. I'm kind of wanting a little bit of shakers in there. Not like a huge amount of shakers, but something else to help kind of like round out the percussive area. And it's something that's pretty common in this style of music, so I think that would be pretty helpful. I think especially as the song progresses, maybe hold off on the shakers till maybe like the second half, and that way it feels like there's more elements going on with it, where it kind of like brings up the energy a little bit. Adding in new like individual layers of percussion one at a time is great for the style music. This part's dope. Yeah, and then I feel like, I don't know if your plan is to like keep working on the arrangement here and kind of like build it out a little bit more and make it a little bit longer. I think if you are, adding in one other main big idea, I think will help carry the arrangement. I think if you're going to keep it this length, it's probably fine. But if you want to go longer, maybe some melodic vocal samples in there could be a good way to help kind of like carry it into the next part of the song. But yeah, it seems like a really solid start. You got all of the core ideas are there. Everything sounded really good. Except for that one vocal sample and your clap snare during the intro. Chat, any other thoughts, ideas, questions, comments? Yeah, you can send me a YouTube link. You can send me any link you want. Just for all the people who are just joining us, in the spreadsheet pinned at the top of the chat, you can just put in a link to anywhere that I can stream it, basically. Just don't make me download anything. That's kind of the only real rule. All right. So next up, we got Willie. All right, let me pull this up. Yeah, I like how it switches up in the middle. Nice. That is a super dope track. I think that you are crushing it in a lot of ways here. I think in terms of the sound design, everything like works well. In terms of the arrangement, also works super well. I like how it switches up halfway through. I think that you're pretty spot on for a lot of the elements of this style of music. However, the big thing that needs some work here is the mixing. I think generally, when I hear songs like this, the mixing is fine, or the mixing's okay, and the song is just not very good. But in this case, the song is very good, but the mixing needs the love. And this style of music is notoriously hard to mix well because you have a lot of elements, a lot of layers, and a lot of things kind of going back and forth. And they're all kind of competing with one another, and everything wants to be really, really loud. So trying to make everything really clear when everything wants to be really loud is quite tricky. So I'm just going to kind of go through just like one section at a time real quick and just give you some like quick thoughts on it. But I think that in terms of production, there's not much you really need to do here besides maybe a little bit of layering on the drums and a few other like little tiny details. It's mostly just making sure your volumes are good and making sure everything is nice and loud in the mix, which is where I want it to be. So first off, you're starting off this like very 80s intro. With that snare. And I honestly think in terms of production, this section is probably what needs the most work. I think that it needs another layer in here to really make it super interesting because the rest of the song is super interesting. And this part, I'm like, it's okay, but like, it's fine. I think the snare's probably too loud and the kick's probably too quiet here. And your main melodic part could probably be a little bit louder. This part sounds pretty good. So here, those big chords, those big kind of like feature bassy chords need to be way louder. I think they probably need to be one of, if not the loudest sounds in this part of the song. Because if those are hitting really hard, then I think most of the rest of the section will kind of come together. Kick also still needs to be louder here. You have this weird kind of choppy synth in the background. It's going dut, 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 dut. That could probably be quieter. And then mix-wise, this part sounds pretty decent. The arpeggiated synth needs to be louder. And this part I think is also really interesting. I think that bass part could probably be a little bit louder or have like a little bit more kind of like grit on it, maybe a little more distortion or something just to like, you know, saturate it a little bit, something like that. What's up, Emo? Welcome. The mix on this section is actually not too bad. I think this is probably the closest to where you want it to be in terms of relative volumes and get everything kind of sitting together. But yeah, you're gonna have to do a lot of like really precise EQing, a lot of like pretty hefty compression on a lot of these sounds. The big thing to remember that I think makes mixing stuff like this a lot easier is just delete things. Like just delete little tiny anything that's not super important to the mix. Just delete it, even if it's like one little note or like a little fraction of a 16th note or something. Anything that's not mandatory to make the song work, delete it or mute it or get rid of it, and that way you have less things competing for your audience's attention or your ear's attention, and then it makes it a little bit easier to mix. So less is more in a lot of cases in order to make mixes for songs like this work. But yeah, really cool track. Really interesting vibe. I think it's got this really nice mix of like 80s synthy stuff with a lot of like modern sound design and interesting stuff going on with it. So super cool track. Just spend a little more time with the mix, and I think it'll be worthwhile. Yeah, the whole thing, like the sound music needs to sound really huge, and it can be tricky to make it do that. But yeah, appreciate you sharing the track. Next up, we got Kevin. Also, for those of you guys who are new here, it seems like there's a lot of people who are sending me a track for the first time. If you find this useful or you are enjoying it in any way, feel free to hit the like button, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. We do this every Friday. Join the Discord. All that stuff is linked below. All right, so we got another track from Kevin. And if you want to submit a track, link is pinned to the top of the chat, to the spreadsheet. Let's turn it up a little bit. Interesting. So a lot of cool stuff going on here. It feels like, honestly, it's definitely, relying pretty heavily on the Daft Punk bass line and chords to kind of like make the whole thing stand together. And to me, it seems like an interesting exercise in taking, a well-known progression like that and kind of like, doing your own spin on it, kind of like a remix, but also reinterpretation, kind of like a cover at the same time, which I think is a really, honestly, cool exercise to try out. One thing you guys could try if you want to is try doing a remix, like a bootleg remix of a track, and then delete the original track that you're remixing, and then you just have whatever you came up with, and then try to finish that track. And that's a really fun way to come up with interesting things. And that's kind of what I want you to do here. I think I like all the other things that you have going on. I like the kind of like slow down 4 on the floor vibe that you have happening. I like your little arpeggiated chime sounds. I like your percussion. But I think it is relying too heavily on the bass line and the chords to kind of carry the whole thing. So I think, honestly, just delete those out of there, write your own chord progression, write your own bass line using the same sounds, and then kind of see where that takes you. And that, I think, will help kind of like reframe this in a way that will allow you to kind of progress it much more into this is your own idea, as opposed to like this is me doing a cover of a Daft Punk song. But yeah, I think that I also agree with chat a little bit. I think it needs a little bit more variation, more different directions, more new elements coming in later on. It did get a little bit repetitive again because we're hearing the same bass line and same chord progression over and over again. So if you had your own in there and you could swap it up to different variations on those bass lines and chord progressions, I think the arrangement's pretty fine. So other than that, I did feel like these chimes worked really well. And I liked how they're all kind of like you could explore those chimes a lot more and like make that more like a central element of the song. But yeah, cool. I think it's a cool experiment, but I think you can take it another 2-3 steps from here and kind of see where that goes. And I'll be curious to hear that for sure. But I appreciate you sharing that. Next up, we got Janef. And again, chat, you are more than welcome to join in, give your own thoughts, feedback, and all that kind of stuff. Janef, your song was not found. Maybe you removed it or the link changed or something. If you want to try to send me the link again or just update the link, that would be great. But I'm going to jump ahead to the next one. All right. Nice. I have been hearing a lot of songs like this recently, and this kind of like vibe of like the really kind of like choppy, distorted drops, which I think is a super cool stylistic choice. Um, so the main things that I'm noticing is I feel like number one, the build-ups going into the drops, I feel are like that transition from a build to drop could be accentuated a little bit more. I don't think you need to do this, but that's kind of something I was hoping, especially for this second drop. It felt like the build is a little short. It's really just here. And so I think you could either add more layers in there to like a noise sweep or more things that are changing to help kind of build that kind of tension before the drop happens. And let me listen to the first one again. It's not quite as big a deal for the first one, but I think you could make both those builds like really build that tension up before you hit them with the drop, as opposed to just kind of like, here it is. And I think that'll make those drops feel pretty satisfying because the drops are super cool. The other big thing that I'd really love is another melodic element. And I know this style of music is not like super heavy on the melody. And you have like, this part here. But having something in the higher frequency range that is doing something kind of interesting, the layers in there could be really nice, especially as you have all these little gaps in space between your crazy sounds. Like a really fast arpeggiator sound, kind of like kind of sound. Could be kind of cool. Or vocal chops, little tiny vocal samples. Like something else melodic that you can put in there. And I think, for me at least, I really like it when songs like this can balance between the beautiful melodic element and the kind of like crispy, glitchy, distorted element. And if you can get those two things to like mesh together, I think that goes a really long way. And I think you're doing a decent job of it right now, but a little bit more on the pretty melodic side to go like to sprinkle in there, I think could help out quite a bit. Excuse me. And then I agree with DJ Emo. A little bit of love on the kick. I think the kick is okay, but it has this very kind of mid-range thud to it. And so I'd like to hear maybe a little bit more of like a boomy, punchy, low-end side of the kick in there. Could be really helpful. Yeah, those are kind of my main pieces of feedback. I really like what you're doing with the drops and all the chops and slicing and things. You have like a really interesting like a layered snare that's getting a little bit lost in the mix there. You can maybe bring that a tiny bit, or maybe layer that with like a snap or clap or something, and that would help kind of really make those kind of impacts hit really hard. But yeah, super cool work. So this seems like a direction a number of artists are heading in. So it's cool to see people kind of like pushing boundaries and doing different stylistic choices like this. But yeah, appreciate you sharing that. All right, so we're gonna jump back to Janef and see if we get this link working. Janef, the link is still not working. Am I doing something wrong here? Yeah, it's still not working for me. So I'm just gonna keep moving ahead. I didn't check Harris here. Yeah, the mix sounded okay. I think you could, I don't know if you've mastered this yet or not, but I think you could push this a lot harder through the master if you wanted to. It seems like you're not quite there yet, but mix sounded decent. Master could definitely be louder. right. All right, so I got a track from Jadon. Jadon, I guess. Seems quiet. I'm gonna turn this up a bit. Nice. That's a super dope track. I think vibe-wise, you're killing it. I think that every element of your song that you had here worked really well. It fit together, create this really interesting mix, this kind of like very kind of like low-key, almost ambient kind of vibe with the big 808s and the hip-hop kind of beats. Really kind of like work together. However, the the big issue that you're running into here is, I think, kind of two things. Number one, and they kind of tie together. Number one is the arrangement. Right now, the arrangement has this nice kind of like slow progression, but I think you could really dial that in and like really kind of build a story out of this. Right now, it just feels like kind of a sketch of a story. Like we're kind of getting a peek at the characters. I kind of like can visualize a world that this exists in. But I want the progression of ideas to flow in a way where each idea builds on top of it and the previous idea, and we kind of like get a whole picture of what's going on. And there's a lot of different ways you can do that. One of the main ways you can do that is my second piece of feedback, which is details. I think little tiny details in tracks like this that are kind of on the minimal side of things are massively, massively important. It changes everything. So what I mean by that is like little drum fills here and there to like indicate that something's about to happen. So before like the kick drum comes in, you have that weird little sound effect. I don't know what that is. And then the kick comes in. But something else in there to really kind of indicate, like kind of cue your listener into what's happening or what is about to happen could be really important. So maybe have a vocal sample in there, or a little noise sweep, or a reverse sound, or something to indicate, or maybe you like fade things out and then the kick comes in, as opposed to the kick, like that one little sound effect and the kick happening. So little things like that, little tiny details, little background things go a long way. For this style of music, I could totally imagine like little vocal chops with tons and tons of reverb and delay in the background, just kind of like echoing through space. Could be really, really cool and kind of emphasize the kind of like ambient, chill nature of the whole thing. So little tiny details, little fills, before things change, I think will go a super long way. And then I think a little bit more variety would also help with the arrangement. Like as you're kind of going from one section to another, have things change a little bit more. And I think that'll also make it feel like a bit more of a progression. And then also it just kind of ends. It seems like that's intentional, but maybe maybe have more of an outro or something so it doesn't just end right there. If you want it there, keep it. But kind of letting the ideas flow to like a natural conclusion or an outro or something like that, I think wouldn't hurt. Let's listen to this part. Yeah, and I think by the time we get to the end here, an extra layer too would be nice. An extra layer of something melodic could again help kind of build that progression of ideas to create a kind of story with the whole thing. But I think the drums sound pretty solid. I think you get a little bit more reverb on your snare to again help kind of fit the airy kind of dreamy vibe that we have going on. But I like the mix of these two different styles, and I think it works pretty well here. And I see all you guys making comments in chat. I appreciate you guys showing up and giving feedback. That's what makes this whole thing fun for everybody. All right, so we got Janeff's track working now.
But I got no hit, so I hope that you wait for me, I'ma put it down on you, yeah. Shorty, give me life or two, yeah. Show me what you mean to me, and I'll be there to wait and stay. So give me love, and I hold you down, and and I'm on my way for you now. So please stay. I said that I was single for you, and all the other girls that I had got for you. I'ma make you wait, I'ma get you there, and you are the best girl I've ever met. And I don't wanna wait, yeah, you all I need. Yeah, you from the east side, baby, you're the best. In the east I love, 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 baby. In the east I love, in the east I love, in the east I love, call it east I love, in the east I love, in the east I love, in the east I love, yeah. In the east I love, in the east I love, call it east I love, east I love. In the morning, you're the one I wanna feel in the morning. I hope you give me the sign. Baby, start to play, baby, start delay. Yeah, you know I'm human and I'm prone to make mistakes. Unajua when the empress nataka kukuimpress. Ni vile uko fast, unafuata tu kwa Insta. All the pretty girls better love you on the instant. Love from the east side. Let me come around, I'ma show you how it is done. It is done. In the instant, in the instant, in the Instagram love. In the instant love. In the east I love, 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 baby. In the east I love, in the east I love, in the east
Damn, Jeff, that's super clean, super tight, really solid track here. I honestly don't have a lot of like hardcore feedback on this one because I think it sounds really solid and there's not really much I would do to it. There's a few minor mix things that I want to point out, and you can, take it with a grain of salt and see how you feel about it. But arrangement-wise, it all worked really well. All the sounds complement each other. Everything worked together. The vocal processing was super tight. Sounded really clean. So yeah, really, really solid work here. As far as mix feedback and what you might want to think about doing, I feel like the vocals could be a tiny bit more compressed and like go up just a hair in volume. Not by much, just a little tiny bit, just to really kind of make sure that they're always kind of the center of attention. I think that the guitar could go down a hair in volume. Again, not a huge amount, but just a little tiny bit, just to, again, make sure the vocals stick out a little bit more. And then you have some horns that come in over here. I think those can be a tiny bit louder. So vocals up a tiny bit, horns up a tiny bit, guitar down a tiny bit. But those are all pretty pretty minor piece of feedback. I'm getting pretty nitpicky here. Other than that, I feel like your kick could maybe be brought out in the mix a little bit more, and maybe that's just because I'm coming from listening to a bunch of electronic music recently, where the kick tends to be a bit more central. In this, yeah, I think the kick could go up a little, like again, just a hair in volume, not a whole lot, but I think a little bit would not hurt. Yeah, other than that, I think it's. Yeah, other than that, everything is sounding super dope. Not much like production feedback there, just little tiny tweaks on the mix here and there. But yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. I personally, I know some people are like worried that they have different styles or genres. I love that every single time I do this, I get tracks from all over different styles of music. I think it makes it really interesting for me. Hopefully it makes it interesting for you guys. So I appreciate you guys sharing works from all different kinds of music from all over the world. I think that's super dope. So we did Jadon, and then we got Vlad next, if I'm not mistaken. So Vlad, your track is also not found. So if you want to try uploading it again, yeah, so if you want to upload this track again and change the link, I will try to do it again in a moment. But right now, your track is not working. Yeah, so I'm gonna jump ahead to email. But yeah, Vlad, if you could, cool, you got it. All right, I'm gonna jump up to email, and then Vlad will come back to you after we do this track.
This is the construct. It's our loading program. Is it really so hard to believe? Your clothes are different, the plugs in your arms and head are gone. Your hair has changed. Your appearance now is what
I'm gonna jump ahead a little bit here just to hear the outro. Nice. I think you got a real solid techno track going on here. I think you're nailing a lot of things. I felt like this section right here, especially
It's our loading program.
the kind of like the synthy thing you have going on there, I think worked really well. It fit the vibe of the track. Sounds really cool. Keeps it super interesting. I feel like there's a couple things that if it were up to me, I would change a tiny bit. I feel like the vocal sample you're using, the Morpheus sample, I think when you're using a sample like that in a song that's this long, it can get a little bit worn out after a while. And so I think that you want to be a little bit more sparing, perhaps, with the vocal sample and make sure you only use it in parts where it's really kind of like helping and benefiting the song. So I would maybe take it out a few places or do a little bit more processing on it. And that way, as it kind of comes in at different points, then it will sound different and feel different. And I think you did a good job of that towards the end here, where he just says real. And so you're really using that delay and like making that like one little word real kind of bounce around in a way that keeps it interesting. So if you are going to be using lots of the matrix samples, make sure that you tweak them a little bit. And I think, you know, in this style of music, delays are perfect. You can just let that one word just echo and just ping pong delay back and forth for forever in the background. And then as it slowly fades away, and then, okay, another word comes in and it echoes around for a long time as a way to help kind of like fill in that background space. Excuse me. I did feel like that the percussion felt a little bit loud, especially during the intro.
Your clothes are different, the plugs in your...
Like during this whole section,
It's our...
I'm mostly just hearing that shaker. And I think that across the board, the percussion could be turned down a little bit, especially during the intro section. And I think just in general, the intro section, a lot of these elements could be a lot louder. The vocals could be louder. A lot of like sound effect stuff could be a little bit louder. Right now, all I'm hearing is shaker. Kind of with that in mind, you had this cool, interesting, weird bass thing going on. It's going whoomp, whoomp occasionally. That could, number one, be louder and could also be explored a lot more. I think there's a lot of interesting potential for that to shift and change over time, as well as to just kind of like be more of a central role in this song. And right now I feel like it's got potential, but it's not, you know, realizing its potential quite yet. So explore that a little bit more. And then maybe also like if you don't want to explore that more, some other more kind of bassy thing going on with it. I just feel like that's where it's missing. You have a really nice big kick drum in the low end, but not a lot else is really going on in the low range is that I'm noticing. And maybe this is just because I listen to a lot of really bassy music, but I was kind of hoping to get more of like a stronger bass line in there. And I think that's really the kind of icing on the cake for this track. I think that will kind of carry it the whole way through once you get that going on. Other than that, I think it's sounding pretty solid. Like I said, I really love this section. Every single synth that you're using in this section, if you wanted to use more of those synths, I would not mind that. I think that'd be totally fine. But yeah, cool track. I think the vocals fit the vibe of it. You get this really kind of like cyberpunky, sci-fi kind of sound, which is perfect for this style of music. But yeah, thanks for sharing that, email. All right, and let's make sure this works. Cool. All right, so this is from Vlad.
This time, come on, let's go.
Yeah, Vlad, I got the note.
This time. This time. This time, come on, let's go.
Damn, Vlad, you crushed it. This track was so dope in so many ways. I love the vibe of it. The mix sounded super clean. The master sounded really polished. I don't know if you even know if you've mastered yet, but the mix sounded like spot on. Sound design was super on point. I just like every time you do something, like the percussion felt interesting. The sound design felt unique, but also really high quality. So this is not a genre I listen to a whole lot, but I've heard enough of it to like kind of know what I'm listening for. And to me, it sounded super original just in terms of like what you're doing. A lot of weird percussive things that kind of came in and out that I thought worked especially well. So I'm gonna have to like really struggle here to like have any critical feedback here. I think I'm just like, this song is basically done in my opinion. There were a few points where a couple of the percussive elements felt a little bit loud. I'm just gonna jump around a little bit. Yeah, I think that like during this section in particular, a number of the percussive parts I think could go down in volume just a hair, not a huge amount. And I think the snare can go up a tiny bit in volume.
This time, come on in.
I loved how weirdly detuned this synth part is. It's like, it's just out of tune enough that it sounds weird, but it also fits in perfectly. So that I thought that was one of my favorite parts of the whole song, was specifically that sound. All right, here's probably my biggest piece of feedback. You have these big kind of horn synth sounds that come in. I think that they should decay off a little bit faster, and that way they'll feel a little bit more percussive. They'll like, because they do a good job of emphasizing like, here's a downbeat.
This time, come on, let's go.
And then I noticed that especially during the second kind of like build up over here. So that berm, the big kind of like horn that comes in, if that ends faster or it kind of like fades away faster, it'll feel like, boom, here's a thing, and then it stops, and then you kind of reset a little bit. Whereas right now it just kind of extends forever, which I feel like kind of lessens the impact a little bit. So if that kind of like fades away, and then you do another one. Like the horn kind of fades into the sub, or that kind of like becomes the sub. So I think that if those are more kind of shorter, it makes them more impactful, and I think will help kind of like, you'll get more of that negative space effect where you have like big sound and then fades away, and then another big sound and fades away, as opposed to right now what you have, which is like big sound kind of fades away, and then there's another big sound. That's probably the biggest piece of critical feedback I have for this. And then Brahms, yeah, Brahms. And then the other thing was during this section, the kind of like ambient chill section, the in-between section. I think another layer of something kind of cool in there could be nice. Either like little bits of high-pitched kind of things. I want to say glitchy things, but that's because I listen to a lot of glitchy music. But something else to kind of fill in that background space could be useful, but not totally necessary. Yeah, other than that, I loved it. I thought this was a fantastic track. I think this track is probably 98% of the way done. But sounded really cool, and yeah, I can't speak highly enough of this track. I think it works super, super well. Sweet. So hopefully that's useful information for you, Vlad. As always, if anybody shared a track today, you can always check out these streams. They all get uploaded to the channel later on, so you can always go back and look at my feedback, look at what chat said, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, hopefully that made sense. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know, because this is a super fascinating track, and I would definitely, I would love to hear this track once you're done. Once you've kind of finished working on it, send it to me again. I want to see where you take it. So at this point, we are all caught up on songs. I got through everything on the spreadsheet. I'm gonna hang out for a few more minutes to see if anybody else is going to show up and send me another track. And I will continue to, yeah, I'll be a few minutes to see if anyone else wants to send anything. If not, I might call it a little bit early tonight just because I got stuff to do. But I appreciate all you guys showing up here on a Friday and sending me your tracks. Yeah, Vlad, you can, I mean, one or two minor changes and this track is done. I think it's sounding really, really good. It's basically my feedback. Also, just as a reminder, in case anybody out there does not know, if you want to send tracks early, you can join the Discord and you can get access to the spreadsheet before the start of the stream, so you can send me tracks before everything starts. Yeah, Jeff, if you want to send another track, just toss it in there. And as always, big thanks to all of you guys. Oh yeah, if you have a track start release, sure, you can send it to me. I'll take a listen to it. Yeah, like I said, we've gotten through everybody's. So if people want to send me another one, just toss it at the bottom of the spreadsheet. The spreadsheet is everything. That fill was awesome. I like that. Nice. Yeah, that sounds really polished. I mean, it's already finished and released, but everything sounds really good to me. The mix sounds really solid. Again, all of the elements fit together really well. And one of the things I'm noticing in both of your tracks is that you do transitions really, really well. You transition from like one musical idea to the next musical idea in a way that like progresses the whole song in a way that makes sense, but also keeps it really new and really fresh. And that I think that that's really solid. So I felt like the strongest part of your song is kind of here as you kind of reset everything, and then you bring in the vocals. This part here works great as a way to kind of like keep the song moving forward, but also like introducing new ideas, but also kind of like keeping it the same as before. I do feel like during this section here, you have the like one really long synth. Occasionally chopping that up and occasionally using a little bit of negative space, I think would go a really long way. Like you have this weird little fill in here somewhere. I don't remember where it is, but you have this weird little thing you do. Stuff like that is super clutch. And so a little bit more of those little fills, I think would go a really long way. Other than that, I don't really have a lot of other like critical feedback here. This part made a lot of sense to me. Yeah, maybe just a little bit more of those vocal parts. I think those vocals are really adding in a lot of interesting ideas to this track. So more usage of vocals could be cool. I guess you're using them here pretty consistently. I kind of wish the bass line changed a little bit from the first section to the next section. Maybe make it like same notes, but maybe like a slightly different synth patch, or maybe a little more plucky or something like that. But again, I'm like really trying to be super critical here and try to find little tiny things you can improve. But the song sounds super dope. Yeah, really solid arrangements on both your tracks, which is not easy to do. But yeah, I appreciate you sharing those tracks. Hopefully you will come back again either next week or sometime in the future and share some other stuff. All right. So Janef, and then Janef, did you put 2 in there? It looks like I might only have time to get to 1, unfortunately. But we will take a listen to this one.
Where you are, where you are. I'm alone in the dark, I don't know where you are. Where you are, where you are. I've lost track of time, looking for your love, and I'm lost in the middle of your eyes. In the middle of your eyes. Don't know where you are, just tell me where you are. I'ma come right there, pick you and go back home. I'm lost in the skies, lost in your eyes, lost in your eyes. Don't know where, lost in your eyes. Don't know where to stay down. Whenever I try to keep my head down, just tell me where you are. I wanna see the light. Show me where you at. I just need your light. I just need some time. Figure shit on my own. On my own. Body's dark out there. It's dark everywhere. I don't ever see what I saw anymore. So I need you. I need you back. Be by my side. By my side. By my side. Woo! I need you. I need you. I need you back. By my side. I need you. I need you back. By my side. I need you back by my side. I need you. I need you back by my side.
Nice. Another track that sounds really, really solid. I think that if it were up to me, I would maybe tone down the reverb on the vocals a hair. I think the vocals sound dope, but there's a few points where the reverb, the tail on the reverb for the vocals, just becomes a little bit too much. And I think you should save those long reverb tails for like the ends of a phrase. So like when you get to the end of this phrase here,
I need you back, be by my side, by my side.
so you save it for that last by my side there, and then you like crank up the reverb for that. But then for the rest of it, it's not quite as noticeable. The other thing that I would love to see, and this might not be the creative direction you want to go with it, but I would love to see the energy level change a little bit more, particularly if it, if I move it down a little bit, which you do hear briefly.
Side.
But I'd be curious to hear like either a little mini verse or a little mini chorus that doesn't have drums, and just like go real kind of light and ambient with it, and just let the vocalist just like be the center, like just the like super center of attention for a few minutes. Not minutes, but you know what I mean. For just a moment, before you bring the drums back in, like let them say either, like I said, a little short verse or a short phrase, and that'll help kind of reset the energy level a little bit. And then I would also love to see, and maybe just try this as a challenge to yourself, bring the energy level up. I think to me, especially the first like minute and a half of this, could be a really great intro for like a really upbeat, like throw down on the dance floor kind of song, if you want to go that direction with it. And so you like make the drum beat a little heavier, or a little heavier, maybe a little faster, and kind of see where that goes. And I think that'd be super interesting, because I think the vocal sounds really solid. I think the chords, the melody, and the drums all sound really solid. But like, I want to hear this as a dance track. Right now, this is just like a sit back and chill kind of track. And I'd be curious to hear what happened if the first little bit was the sit back and chill part, and then you kind of ramp up the energy, and then you kind of deliver on something that people can actually like really groove to on a dance floor. Which might not be a direction you're interested in taking it, but I think it could be really cool, and I think it's something that would be people would definitely be into. I feel like even just tossing like a big kind of like four on the floor kind of just toss like a four on the floor kind of beat on that, and then just bring up the energy a little bit. Maybe bring in a couple extra sounds and just kind of see where that takes you. But yeah, this is it's sounding really clean. I think your vocal processing has gotten really dialed in, and it's sounding really solid. And I like what you did with the vocal chops. I think the vocal chops here are pretty cool. As a cool way to kind of like switch it up a little bit, and I think it fits really well with the saxophone you got going on there. But that is a super cool track. But yeah, I would love to hear this track as a dance track, in addition to what it already is. Cool. So at this point, I think we've gotten through everybody's tracks, and at least 2 tracks, and people want to send more. Vlad, I see that you posted another one in there, which I'm probably not going to get around to tonight. However, I will leave it in the spreadsheet, so the start of next week, I will just listen to that one first, if that works for you. Somebody disliked. Oh my god. I don't think I've gotten a dislike on one of these streams before. Maybe somebody didn't like their feedback. So Jeff was asking about filter truck to cut 200 and 1000 hertz, put the drum bus in the rear for a tasty slice of vocal, and then boom back on. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure, Emo, if I get what you are saying there. So you're cutting anything below 200 and above 1000. So you just put a filter on your drums, auto filter on the drums, so that the so it puts them back in the rear. Interesting. And are you talking about specifically doing that for certain points when the vocal is happening? Or just in general? Cool. Well, yeah. Well, I appreciate you guys all sticking around and sharing multiple tracks. I hope you guys, I know pretty much everybody in here is from a different part of the world, which is super fucking cool, in my opinion, which is great. So you guys have a really solid weekend. We'll work on some more tracks, and I will be back next Tuesday for just the kind of hangout and talk about music, office hours, Ableton Live music production stream. And then, of course, next week I will be back for just the song feedback stream. And Janef and Vlad, who both put in extra tracks, I will leave them in the spreadsheet. And then at the start of the stream next week, I will listen to those first. And that way, if you want to watch those later on, you can just watch the streams later on. But yeah, appreciate all you guys. If you want to do me a favor and give the channel some love, like, comment, subscribe, all that kind of stuff on any of the videos I've been posting, that's super helpful for me, and I definitely appreciate it. I got a DJ gig on Sunday that I'm super stoked about, so I gotta do some work getting ready for that. It's nice to be able to get out there and perform again. But yeah, that's gonna be it for tonight. Have a good weekend. Have a good week. Make some music. and then send me your music whenever you make it. So yeah, so I will see you guys later.